Hey everyone, Seth Campbell here. Welcome to the new Segue Says podcast. You might notice the surroundings are a little bit different than they were last time you saw me. That's because this is the first episode that I am filming while quarantining at my parents' home in the wilds of New Hampshire. I am in the barn. So for the time being, that's where these will be being made. So, this is going to be an interesting episode because I believe this is the first time I have ever made a segue as a direct result of a challenge, and it requires a bit of a backstory. Recently, through amazing coincidence, I reconnected with someone I hadn't spoken to for about 16 years. A woman by the name of Arjana Ivan, who's an amazing violin player. That's how I met her. She played violin with Inca Sun, the Peruvian folk band that I used to play with from time to time. I've mentioned them before. If you don't know, that's its own very long story. But anyway, so I randomly reconnected with her recently and found out that in addition to being an amazing violin player, she's also an incredible singer. And she and her partner, Ivan Danilets, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, have this incredible jazz duo that I thoroughly recommend you check out, as I have written on the blackboard here. They've been doing live streams from home during the COVID quarantine, as many of us have been doing. They have a couple albums out, and they do these incredible arrangements of, he plays a piano, and she sings, and she plays a little bit of violin. These incredible arrangements of, classic jazz standards, the crooner ballads, but also of, more contemporary or classic pop songs. And the arrangements are incredibly creative and a lot of fun. And so I've been tuning into their live streams, and recently they did one where they played I'm Yours by Jason Mraz, and in the middle of it, they did a bit of Don't Worry, Be Happy by Bobby McFerrin. Now, as a Segue enthusiast, I, of course, absolutely loved this. And as I got to the end of the song, Ivan said, yeah, we discovered that it only works one way. You have to play I'm Yours first, otherwise the Segue doesn't work. Now, I took that as a challenge because I figured, okay, you got two songs, similar tempo, very similar groove, they're in the same key. So I said, I think I can make it work. To which Yvonne said, okay, you've got 5 days. I said, all right. Now, I should say, Yvonne is a much, much more skilled piano player than I am. So when they played these songs, he was doing much more complex jazz chords, and trills and fills and such. But here is the loophole that I'm going to cling to for dear life. He didn't say I had to use those chords as well. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the kind of things that he was doing, if I remember correctly, just because they're so cool. But anyway, the two songs, as I've already said, are I'm Yours by Jason Mraz and Don't Worry, Be Happy by Bobby McFerrin. Except we're going to do them in reverse order, because I think it worked. Now, I will say, I think he's right that doing I'm Yours first works better. And we'll talk about how to do that so that you can, you, the viewer, can do with this as you want. But we're going to see how we can do it with Don't Worry, Be Happy first. Now, of course, B major reggae and a cappella. It was, I believe, the first chart topper that was ever a cappella. All the voices are by Bobby McFerrin, including the lead vocal, in which he sings in an accent that is not his, and it took me many years to learn that that was not his real accent. And now that I think about it, the accent sounds a lot more like Vardan of Sepian, the Armenian prodigy who was my piano teacher for many years. Here's a little song I wrote, might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry, be happy. Every life will have some trouble, but when you worry you make it double. Don't worry, be happy. Don't worry, be happy now. So the chord loop is very simple. It's B, C sharp minor, you can make C sharp minor 7, I like to do that. E, B. So it's the 1, the 2 minor, 4, 1. And that's the loop of the whole song. Now, interestingly enough, when you get into the later verses, you know, there's one, landlord says the rent is late. He might have to litigate. Don't worry. Be happy. I feel like you should worry about that one. Like, some of the later verses, I feel like these are things that you might actually want to worry about a little. Maybe that's just me, but anyway. So, I'm Yours by Jason Mraz off the album We Sing, We Dance, We Steal Things, which is still one of my favorite album titles of all time. Also in B, also 1 and 2 and 3. So it's swing 16ths. 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a. Now the groove is a little different because the Don't Worry Be Happy groove always has there's always the 2 hits in the right hand. Because obviously everything is vocals in the original recording. Whereas the I'm Yours groove varies. It can be either 2 or 1. And as you get later into the song and more of the band comes in, the guitar is mainly doing 1 hit. Open up your mind and see like me. But anyway, so I'm Yours is also 1 looping chord progression with an extra chord thrown in on occasion, and the bridge is a little different, but the main part of it is a loop of what longtime viewers of this podcast will know as the progression, capital T, capital P. In other words, it's the 1, which in this case is B, the 5, F sharp, the 6 minor, G sharp minor, the 4, E. Well, you done me and you bet I felt it. I tried to be chill, but you're so hot that I melted. I fell right through the cracks, and now I'm trying to get back. Before the cool done run out, I'll be giving it my best kiss, and nothing's gonna stop me but divine intervention. Thinking it's again my turn to win some or learn some, but I won't hesitate no more, no more. It cannot wait. I'm yours. Ooh, yeah. Now the thing I love about this song is in the bridge and the actually no, the first one is in the second verse. It breaks up the you know, kind of the monotony, if you will, of this familiar chord progression. Let's see. Me open up your place and love, 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 love. Listen to the music of the moment, people dance and sing. We're just one big family, and it's our God-forsaken right to be loved, love, 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 love. It's the 2 dominant 7, so C sharp 7, just to break it up. I love that so much. And that chord appears in a few different places throughout the remainder of the song. So, you know, hats off to Jason Mraz for, you know, realizing that, okay, you know, we need something a little bit more than this progression. What can we do to liven it up a little bit? I love it. Anyway, so you can probably hear these songs are pretty similar. Now, the way Arjana and Ivan did it, which again, I will maintain is, you know, probably... It works better, I think, to have I'm Yours first. So I'll agree with them on that. Is coming out at, you know, after the bridge of... Actually, I don't even remember if they did the bridge. I might have just done the verses. I'm Yours. So you're on this loop. Here's a little song I wrote. Might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry. You just switch progressions. It's really easy. Now, if you just switch progressions the other way, it is a little more jarring. If you've been doing the Don't Worry, Be Happy progression, ad infinitum, to suddenly go to the 5 chord, because the 5 chord in this key, for those musically inclined, we know of it as the dominant chord, which, it carries a lot more weight than the subdominant chords that we had been using before, or the root chord. So when you switch to that chord, it's definitely, it's a bigger jump than it would be if you've been using that chord already to just go to the subdominant chords. So you have to be a little more delicate with it. And what I always, and I think we've talked about this in previous Segue episodes, is find some sort of a commonality or something you can hold over so you're not making the entire jump all at once. And because these songs are, same tempo, same key, there's a lot to work with. The melodies in particular of Don't Worry, Be Happy are very friendly to these keys. And the one we're going to use is the little, honestly, you could call it a chorus if you wanted to. Now that melody is very, very diatonic. It's very much in the key. There are no weird outlier notes. So if you play, say, another chord progression that's still very much in the key, like the progression for I'm Yours, you could, in this case, carry over that same melody. So it would sound like this. That's the same melody over both progressions. The first one was the I'm Yours progression, the second one was Don't Worry, Be Happy. Now, because these notes are all very much in the key, if you're playing chords that are still in the key, they're going to land somewhere that, almost all the time in situations like this, the notes are going to land somewhere on one of the chords that works. So, for example, the first chord, B, is the same either way, so that doesn't matter. If you're playing the Don't Worry, Be Happy progression, that note is C sharp and it's on a C sharp minor. So you're landing on the 1 of that chord. If you're doing the I'm Yours progression, the C sharp is the 5th scale note of the F sharp chord. So it fits perfectly. Now the third chord is the only one where this gets a little, you push your luck a little bit when you make this happen. Now, in Don't Worry, Be Happy, it's again landing on a C sharp, and it's the 6th note, or the 6th scale degree of the E major chord. So it just makes it major 6, which, is a pretty common chord. Now, in the I'm Yours progression, it's the 4th scale degree of the G sharp minor chord. So that makes this chord, it's a G sharp minor add 4, or, the more music theory minded might call it a G sharp minor 11. which is, it's its own thing. So, but it's a tension 11 because basically if you were building the chord vertically, you have the 1, the 3, the 5, the 6, the 9, and then the 11 would be that same note. You're just transposing it down an octave. So that is a little more dissonant. It doesn't quite land in the chord, but it's helped by the fact that it has this little neighbor tone. So essentially it's going 4, 5, 4 over this chord. And because it's, you know, a more unstable chord, if you will, based on the fact that it's third in the progression as opposed to, you know, first or fourth, we can get away with it. Like it's the stickiest point in this, but we can definitely get away with it. Now the fourth chord in Don't Worry Be Happy just goes right back to the B. And so the B note that you have in the voice is the 1. Whereas the fourth chord in I'm Yours is E, so it's the 5. But again, that's still a very strong note over that chord. So this melody can really bridge the gap both ways. So the way I would choose to do this as a segue, if I was determined to start with Don't Worry Be Happy, is to go through most or all of Don't Worry Be Happy, because the last verse is actually lyrically pretty much a repeat of the first verse. And so if you want to come back into Don't Worry Be Happy at the end, I would advise saving that last verse. So after the third verse, and you know, which is what's the second half of the third verse? Is when you worry, your face will frown. That will bring everybody down. So don't worry, be happy. Don't worry, be happy. Don't worry, be happy. I would go through that melody a couple times on the Don't Worry Be Happy progression just to establish that it's business as usual. I've changed the progression. Have a live audience, you could get them to sing that along with you, so they'll be invested in the melody. They might not even notice that you switched the progression. But now you're in this new progression. Just start with the first verse of I'm Yours. You done me and you bet I felt it. I tried to be chill, but you're so hot that I melted. I fell right through the cracks, and now I'm trying to get back. And you'll notice for the piano, I'm just keeping the right hand. I'm sticking more with the rhythm of Don't Worry Be Happy just for the sake of continuity. At some point, if you wanted to, you could switch to the more single hit right hand. I'd recommend not doing that immediately. Like maybe wait until you get to the second verse, where in the Jason Mraz recording the band kicks in, because there's a bit of a dynamic swell there, so you can just sort of take advantage of that to make a change in the way you're playing it. Or you could just go the whole way doing the Don't Worry Be Happy pattern, because it works. So if you want to go back into Don't Worry Be Happy at the very end, this is something, you know, I kind of discovered this by accident. But it's the exact same principle where, because the melody of Don't Worry Be Happy is very diatonic, much like the, you know, the chorus or the riff, I guess you could call it a riff, it will still work over diatonic chord progression. So what you can do is keep playing the chords of I'm Yours, So after the last chorus of I'm Yours, Jason Mraz says you know, the record fades out. I don't actually remember how he ends it live. I personally like to go to that 2 dominant again. I'm yours. I like to end I'm Yours that way myself, but if you want to go back into Don't Worry Be Happy, you can just keep playing the I'm Yours progression, because the verse melody of Don't Worry Be Happy is diatonic. You can just throw it over the same progression. Like I said, that'll work most of the time when you have very diatonic melodies and progressions. It won't always work, but here's a little song I wrote. Might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry, be happy. 'Cause every life will have some trouble, but when you worry, you make it double. Don't worry, be happy. You can play with the melody a bit like I did there, and then just if you want to, you could still go, I'm yours. I really like ending it like that, if you couldn't tell. So that is how you can make that work. Now, I will say again, the way Arjana and Ivan did it had a lot more jazz chords and fills, so that when you have many, I guess, not extra notes, but added notes, it can make jumps like this a little bit easier. For example, they played it in B flat, and I should say it sounds smoother when they did it because Arjana was the one singing, and because she's a woman, she sings in the female vocal register. She doesn't sing the bottom McFerrin one low. She sings in the same octave as the Jason Mraz song. So if you have that kind of a vocal range, I would recommend potentially doing that. I mean, I could try. I don't think I could pull off. Every life will have some trouble. When you worry, you make it double. Don't worry. I mean, I guess I can, but it doesn't feel as relaxed when I do it. But so they played it in B flat. Like Ivan was doing, I think that like for B flat he would do a B flat dominant 13, like an F9, G minor 7. And then E flat dominant 9. It gives it more of a jazzy, bluesy feel. And again, he's a much better piano player than I am, so I'm just trying to do a pale imitation. You done me, you bet I felt it. Tried to beat you, but you're so hot that I melted. I fell right through the cracks, and now I'm trying to get back. And so they would just go, from that. Song I wrote, you might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry, be happy. And I'm realizing now that when I'm doing it, it's sounding even more blues heavy than the way they did it. But that's something else you can do when you've got songs like this. Is if you find additional notes you can add to the chords. Maybe you can kind of. I don't know how I want to put this. Maybe not confuse, but dazzle the listeners enough that anything that you feel might be making a bit of a jump is actually seems a lot smoother to the listener because they're distracted by all these shiny upper structure triads and tension chords for the musically minded who understand what I'm saying here. But anyway, all that said, I think I've met the challenge. So, your move, Ivan. But I want to say I've had a lot of fun doing it. I've wanted the motivation to start recording these again, and this provided the perfect one. So, thank you, both Ivan and Arjana, for all the entertainment, all the amazing music, and for everyone else viewing this, check them out. I have it written on the board here, but if you can't see it, it's Arjana and Ivan Duo, and Arjana is spelled Arjana, and Ivan is Ivan. Check them out. They are amazing, and they're great people. So, hopefully everyone who's watched this has enjoyed. Hopefully you've learned something. Hope you're all staying safe out there, taking care, doing the best you can. And I will see you again soon.